Sofia starts her day, greeting Stian, her husband, and Odin, her son, at home. Then, she gets ready for the morning and drives to work. She works at a drone research center. There, she met her colleague, also a close friend, Arthur. They set up the underwater drone as Sofia puts it through a timed challenge to test its performance under pressure. As time ticks down, the pressure builds. Everything goes well, until the drone hits an obstacle on its return, causing it to shut down and ending the challenge. At the end of the workday, Sofia and Arthur pack up their things, wrapping up their tasks and getting ready to leave. They head to a barbecue party where Stian, Odin, and Stian's friend are already relaxing. The day is spent enjoying good conversation and playing games until the evening comes to an end. The next day, Sofia meets with Arthur again. Before they can get into much conversation, the phone rings, a sudden emergency. They're told to head to the heli base immediately. Once there, they begin gathering all the necessary resources, preparing for whatever situation might unfold. They meet a man named William Lai. Without much explanation, Sofia and Arthur are quickly handed non-disclosure agreements to sign, with no clear details, just urgency and silence. Still without knowing any real details, they board the helicopter. It takes off and carries them toward a large ship station near the oil rigs. Once they land, they get off and quickly set up their equipment and the underwater drone, preparing for the mission ahead. In the operator room, they're briefed and directed by both William and Barrett, who are in charge of the operation. Then they receive the schematic of the oil rig. As they study the layout, the purpose of the mission finally becomes clear. A local subsidence has caused an entire oil rig platform to collapse and sink beneath the surface. William steps forward and explains the objective. They're hoping to search the wreckage for any air pockets and any possible survivors trapped inside. They carefully deploy the underwater drone using the ship's equipment. Sofia then begins maneuvering it into the deep sea. The surroundings are completely pitch black, nothing is visible in the darkness. The room is completely silent, tension thick in the air. No one knows what lies beneath. What they're about to uncover could change everything. Then, finally, they spot something man-made. A shattered piece of the oil rig, resting on the ocean floor. Following the wreckage, they edge closer to the sunken oil rig, its massive structure looming in the darkness. Using the underwater drone's claw, they pried open the door and entered. They saw no sign of human activity. Moving through the wreckage, they came across a lifeless body, abandoned amidst the scattered debris. Focusing on the mission and the schematic, they move deeper into the wreckage. All they encounter is another corpse, adding to the unsettling silence of the abandoned rig. Then they hear a knocking sound through the speaker. They track it and discover a human trapped under an air pocket. The control center immediately sends out an evacuation boat. Through the comms, the survivor pleads desperately for help. Suddenly, sonar interference disrupts the signal. The water begins bubbling violently. The leak isn't coming from the oil rig. No one knows what's causing it, and the survivor starts choking, gasping for air. Then, Sofia and Arthur hear a low rumbling echo through the operation room. It grows louder and more intense with each passing second, vibrating the boat. Realizing something is wrong, Sofia and Arthur retract the drone. Sofia rushes to the commander, demanding they stop the operation. But it's too late. An explosion hits the boat, injuring several crew members, including Sofia. After the explosion, Stian meets with Sofia at the medical center, where she's still recovering from her injuries, and for a brief moment, they get to see each other again in the aftermath of everything that's happened. Meanwhile, the board members, along with Arthur, are still piecing together the clues surrounding the aftermath of the explosion and everything that led up to it. They're trying to make sense of the situation and uncover the truth behind the disaster. Sofia was able to spend some quiet time with Stian at home, enjoying the brief respite after the chaos. However, Stian's work obligations soon pulled him away. Reluctantly, he had to leave Sofia and Odin behind, despite wanting to stay with them during this difficult time. Stian, now back at work on the oil rig, met with Ronnie, his close friend and team leader. The two shared a casual conversation, catching up on the events that had unfolded. Ronnie, always supportive, expressed his happiness about Stian's relationship with Sofia. Arthur and Sofia examined the drone footage closely and quickly realized that the source of the leak is coming from the seabed, uncovering a much larger issue. They rushed to the control center with the footage, hoping to warn the team. Upon meeting William again, Sofia presents the footage, but he quickly shuts her down, citing the non-disclosure agreement. Sofia tries to argue, desperately warning him that this situation is dangerous, but William refuses to listen. Sofia returns, her frustration evident. Arthur reassures her, trying to calm her down, and insists they'll find a way to address the situation. William gathers with the board and government officials to present the latest findings. New data indicates significant shifts in the seabed, with multiple fractures and slides forming across the area. The crack responsible for the oil rig's sinking is much more extensive than anyone initially believed, and to make matters worse, it continues to expand. This new fracture is directly linked to the ancient Starega slide, one of the largest underwater landslides in recorded history. This isn't merely a localized collapse. The damage aligns with the locations of thousands of wells drilled over the decades. There's growing speculation that human activity, decades of oil and gas extraction, could have contributed to the geological instability now threatening the entire region. The conclusion is undeniable: all drilling operations must be immediately halted. But now, there's one major concern. If any rig is compromised and the drills are forcefully pulled out, oil will begin leaking uncontrollably into the sea. A major operation and evacuation are announced as necessary to shut down and evacuate half of the North Sea platforms before more start collapsing. Stian and Ronnie, both part of the evacuation team, pack up their gear. They're quickly briefed on the urgent situation, needing to prepare for the evacuation and shutdown of their platform. William, on the other hand, is focused on commanding and monitoring the shutdown process. He ensures that every valve at each oil rig is closed remotely before the evacuation is carried out. Just as the large-scale evacuation is underway and systems across the rigs are being shut down one by one, a sudden issue appears on the control panel. One of the rig valves fails to close completely, raising immediate concern. Meanwhile, Sofia receives the news about the evacuation directly from Stian, who informs her about the ongoing situation. The scene shifts back to Stian and the evacuation team. Ronnie receives a direct update from higher-ups. The valve that's failing to shut off is located at their very own oil rig. Stian notices the sudden concern on Ronnie's face after receiving the message. Without hesitation, he steps forward and volunteers to shut the valve manually himself, knowing the risk but understanding the urgency of the situation. This is no easy task. Stian has to descend to the deeper part of the oil rig to reach the malfunctioning valve. Suddenly, from the control center, the entire platform begins to lose communication. Alarms start blaring, warning lights flash across the screen, and the whole system goes offline. A whole new section of the seabed begins to collapse, swallowing everything in its path. The evacuation is forced to proceed without knowing Stian's status, and the last helicopter takes off as the platform continues to collapse, leaving behind the uncertain fate of those still unaccounted for. Sofia couldn't get in contact with Stian, and with the evacuation underway, uncertainty starts to build. She rushes to the control center, urgently asking for any information about Stian's whereabouts, hoping for confirmation that he's safe. There, she learns the truth. The rest of the team had evacuated, but Stian didn't make it out. He had stayed behind, tasked with manually shutting the valve when the remote system failed. Desperate, Sofia begs William to send a rescue team, but he refuses. The situation is too dangerous. Another collapse could happen at any moment, and the entire platform is at risk of sinking after already losing a section. Left with no other option, Sofia ends up helplessly watching from afar. Unable to do anything, she to stay strong for Odin. In a moment of desperation, Sofia remembers the oil rig's surveillance system. Determined to find Stian, she demands access to the footage, hoping it might offer some clue about his whereabouts. The footage reveals the last moments of the oil rig before the collapse. As Sofia watches, her heart sinks. It's clear there is no way Stian could have made it out in time. But then, they notices something unusual. One of the hatches is open, something that shouldn't have been possible. It could only have been opened by someone, which means there might still be hope. Sofia takes matters into her own hands. She calls Arthur and explains the anomaly she discovered, urging him to join her. Together, they prepare the underwater drone for another search. They board the helicopter, heading straight for the platform, determined to find Stian. The helicopter reaches the platform and drops off Arthur and Sofia, along with their equipment. One of the oil rig's legs has been completely severed, leaving the structure dangerously unstable. Garrett talks to Ronnie about Stian's situation and Sofia's search. Overcome with guilt for not stopping Stian, he decides to take care of Odin while Sofia continues the search. Sofia and Arthur find a suitable position on the oil rig and begin setting up their equipment. They unload the necessary tools and prepare the area for the deployment. Once everything is in place, they start getting the underwater drone ready for launch. Another search begins as Sofia and Arthur operate the drone together. Drawing from their experience, they carefully navigate the underwater drone into the deeper sections of the oil rig, scanning every area through the drone's camera feed. They switch to thermal imaging mode, hoping to detect any sign of life through residual heat. As the drone continues its slow movement through the submerged structure, they eventually come across a heat signature. They're certain it has to be Stian. At the same time, the board members receive a critical update. An image captured by a surveillance plane reveals a massive oil spill spreading rapidly across the sea. The scale of the spill is far worse than anticipated. If it reaches the coastline, the consequences will be irreversible. Entire marine ecosystems could be wiped out, coastal cities would face long-term contamination, and the economic impact would be catastrophic. One last resort option is brought forward, igniting the oil spill before it reaches the shore. The board contacts the Prime Minister directly. Given the urgency, the operation is authorized immediately. Sofia and Arthur rush down the platform without wasting a second. Deep beneath the surface near the collapsed platform, they finally locate Stian. He's alive, but badly injured, weak, and barely conscious. Trapped in a confined space, he's been clinging to life. Wasting no time, Sofia and Arthur work together to free him from the hatch. As Sofia and Arthur continue their desperate rescue, multiple stealth jets are deployed, each armed with precision missiles, tasked with executing a controlled burn over the oil-covered sea surface. Ronnie learns from Barrett that the government has authorized the ignition of the oil spill. Ronnie realizes the oil rig where Sofia, Stian, and Arthur are located lies directly in the projected path of the fire. He rushes to the control room, demanding they call off the strike. But the oil spill is already ignited. William learns about Stian's survival and manages to establish contact. His voice is strained as he delivers the harsh truth. Fire from the ignition will reach their location in less than 5 minutes. There's no way a rescue team can arrive in time. Panic quickly takes over as Stian, Sofia, and Arthur desperately search for any chance of survival. With no helicopters available and no contingency plans, the approaching wall of fire leaves them with a single, risky option, the lifeboats. But escaping won't be easy. Remaining on the surface means certain death by the flames. Thinking fast, Sofia proposes a daring plan: flood the lifeboat, submerge it, and try to survive by staying beneath the fire as it sweeps over them. Under immense pressure, the three of them work swiftly, filling the boat with water and carefully adjusting the valves and water levels. The lifeboat creaks and strains under the weight, but they have no other choice. It's a high-risk move, but it's their only shot at survival. With no time to spare, they close the hatch and brace for the plunge into the fiery sea. Inside the lifeboat, Sofia struggles to activate the release mechanism, but it won't budge. The situation becomes dire, flames roar above them, and the pressure below intensifies. She pulls again, but nothing happens. Arthur inspects the lever, realizing something's malfunctioning. In a moment of desperation, he makes a gut-wrenching decision. He sacrifices himself, forcing the release from the outside, fully aware he won't survive the attempt. The lifeboat plunges into the ocean, the force of the drop knocking Stian unconscious. Inside, Stian remains unconscious as the lifeboat sinks further into the depths. Water levels rise and pressure builds. Sofia struggles, disoriented and unsure how to operate the controls. She braces herself for what could be the end, but just as hope fades, Stian stirs. Weakly, he instructs her to open the black valve and start pumping. Sofia listens and she follows his directions. The system finally responds, and the lifeboat stabilizes, then, gradually, begins to rise. They manage to break the surface. Stian contacts Ronnie, and moments later, rescue helicopters arrive. Sofia and Stian are airlifted out alive. They reunite with their son Odin, safe at last.